George had always been a restless soul. He had a fascination with the unknown, a craving for adventure that couldn't be contained within the confines of his mundane daily routine. One night, as the clock struck midnight, he found himself behind the wheel of his old, beaten-up car, embarking on a night drive that would change his life forever. The darkness embraced the deserted road as George's headlights pierced through the thick veil of night. The quiet hum of the engine and the rhythm of the tires against the pavement were the only sounds that accompanied him. He relished in the solitude, feeling the weight of the world slip away as he ventured into the unknown. But as the minutes turned into hours, the road seemed to stretch on endlessly, and a sense of unease crept into George's heart. Shadows danced on the periphery of his vision, and whispers of doubt echoed in his mind. Should he turn back? Yet his thirst for adventure urged him to press on. Just when he considered giving up and admitting defeat, a flickering neon sign materialized in the distance. The Lost Highway Diner, it read, glowing like a beacon in the night. A surge of relief washed over George as he pulled into the diner's empty parking lot. The diner was eerily quiet, the air thick with anticipation. George hesitantly pushed open the door and entered. The smell of coffee and fried food filled his nostrils as he scanned the dimly lit room. Not a soul was in sight, except for the lone figure behind the counter. The old man, with weathered hands and a wise gleam in his eyes, greeted George with a knowing smile. "Long drive, son?" he asked, his voice like a melody of distant memories. George nodded, unable to suppress his curiosity. "How did you know?" The old man chuckled softly. "I've seen many weary travelers stumble upon this place in search of answers. Sometimes they find them, sometimes they don't." George's heart raced. What kind of answers? The old man leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. "The answers you seek lie beyond the darkness, beyond the edges of your comfort zone. Take the road less traveled, and you might just find what you're looking for." With those cryptic words, the old man disappeared into the shadows, leaving George to contemplate his next move. He could feel the weight of his decisions bearing down on him, a heavy burden that only he could carry. Was he willing to step into the unknown and confront his deepest fears? Fueled by a mix of apprehension and determination, George stepped back into the night, the cool air enveloping him like a cloak. He got into his car, feeling the weight of the old man's words lingering in his mind. The road ahead seemed even darker now, the stars obscured by thick clouds. As George drove deeper into the night, a sense of foreboding settled within him. The road twisted and turned, revealing hidden secrets and untold stories. Every corner he took felt like a step further into the abyss, but he couldn't turn back now. There was something calling to him, something he had to uncover. Suddenly, a faint glimmer caught his attention in the distance, a solitary light in the middle of nowhere. George's curiosity surged, overpowering any lingering fear. He approached cautiously and discovered a deserted cabin, its windows cracked and weather-worn. Inside, the air was stale and heavy, as if it hadn't been disturbed in ages. George's footsteps echoed through the silence as he explored each room. Dust-covered furniture and faded photographs adorned the space, whispering tales of forgotten lives. In the darkest corner of the cabin, George discovered an old journal. Its leather cover was worn, and its pages yellowed with age. As he flipped through the fragile pages, he stumbled upon a passage that sent shivers down his spine. "The lost souls wander, forever trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. Beware the road after midnight, for it leads to the heart of darkness. Those who venture must confront their deepest fears or risk becoming lost forever." The words seemed to leap off the page, seeping into George's soul. His mind raced with possibilities and apprehensions, but he knew he had come too far to turn back now. He needed to face whatever lay ahead, to confront the shadows within himself. The night drive continued, each mile bringing George closer to his own personal reckoning. The road grew treacherous, winding through dense forests and crossing desolate bridges. The sounds of his own heartbeat merged with the symphony of the night as the world around him seemed to transform into a living nightmare. A friend of mine works in the region of another city and came home for the weekend. Knowing that on Sunday he will not be able to catch the train, he agreed with me in advance that I would take him by car. Go there about 250 kilometers. We got ready, left. The time was about 7 p.m. and that I would not be bored to go back. We went with my brother and another kid, in fact, with whom it all began. His name is Dustin. So Dustin suggested we take a shortcut, 40, and go not on the federal highway, on which by our Russian standards, the road is almost perfect, and bypass road. The idea I did not immediately like, but okay, most were in favor. We drove out on the highway. The first 60 kilometers there were no disturbing events. The guys drank beer. I drove the car. We laughed. It was fun. Before that there was a little rain. But it ended. The sun was shining. In general, in the company of good friends, the mood is just amazing. But after driving 60 kilometers, it started, honestly, some nonsense. The clouds came. It started pouring rain. The wipers of the car at maximum speed somehow coped with the flow of water, and somewhere disappeared all the cars, neither behind, nor towards us. No one drove at all. But it did not break our overly cheerful mood. Then what happened was this. The car began to throw at a speed of 70, not much, but noticeable. The guys asked to stop for the need. I stood near some brick wall, which was along the road. It was raining, but less. We came out, did all the work, sit back. I start to move, but the car began to go somehow strange. It did not go more than 40. We immediately did not understand what's wrong. But then, looking out the window, my brother saw that we were driving on a completely flat tire, or rather on a cast disc. I got out of the car, began to change to a spare. My brother asked him to look around, Oliver, and passed at a great speed as a gazelle. If I was there with the key, I would have been knocked on the deaf. We let tire on the brother. He replied that he did not understand where it jumped out of. And what was also very interesting was the hole in the punctured wheel. It was on the side. A diameter of cm. 6, as if someone shot. Such a hole could not be formed on a flat road, and even more so when we were standing. The rubber is new and a decent company. Further, we went not so cheerful, as the time went strangely fast, and it was already 11 p.m. It was getting dark not on time quickly, and we passed only 100 kilometers. Although according to the federal highway, we should have already been there. The road began such a G, but we drove no more than 30, and there were still no cars and any villages, but there was a feeling that we are not alone in this area. And then we all at the same time visited a feeling of strong anxiety. Some not clear, from nowhere came. Although all of us are not from the timid 10, and we decided, by all means, to find an exit to the federal highway, as no one understood where this road leads, where we are going. And finally, the long-awaited residential village called Orlovka. There we learned how to approximately exit to the federal highway, and followed the route of the grandfather in a Uazik, who in the aftermath said that be careful and do not stop for anything. We drove along a perfectly flat road. It was about 12. It was raining. It was dark. It was like a balloon. Again, there was nobody but us. And along the road, by the side of the road, every now and then some silhouettes and shadows appeared. I referred to the play of light from headlights and tired eyes, but also the guys saw some devilishness, and also above us someone constantly appeared in the sky. It looked like a big bat. But bats in such weather do not fly. In general, we were driving and did not even suppose where. It was very scary, because it could once again burst out of the blue wheel or something else, and then all, whether we want it or not, but we have to stop. And grandfather strongly recommended not to stop. I think not for nothing. And finally, after 70 kilometers, which we drove along this road in complete anxiety, we saw the lights of the federal road. We reached it in one breath. On it, we were already driving, practically forgetting about what happened before. As the road there is moving, we were in a good mood again. until we again paid attention to no appearing flying creature. We sought it 3 more times for the remaining 100 kilometers of the way. We entered a settlement called Ivanovka, and from there another 50 kilometers, and we are there. In order not to get lost again, we decided to ask a passing man, but he behaved strangely. First he ran away sharply, and then he came back sharply and began to explain, but his route was like some nonsense. First he looped with the road, and then said at the end, "Turn left, there will be graves. That's where you'll find your way." Talking to him was creepy, or rather, he was like hypnotizing, and we listened to him like spellbound. We all felt like we had to ask someone else. Oliver and I went into a convenience store, and we asked the clerk for directions and told her about the stranger we had met. She asked us to describe him, then told us the correct directions, a very different one, and said, "This man is often seen at the scene of fatal accidents. This is a harbinger of trouble. I am afraid for you. You are still young. In general, drive 30 kilometers, then do not drive fast. There will be a large Orthodox cross and wreaths. He is often seen there, in front of this cross. Be careful." Oliver told me how they were driving there before, and before that cross their car started to spin on a flat place, and they stopped right in front of that cross. But he said that they didn't see this guy. Well, what can we do? We have to go. And we did everything as this woman seller said, passing by this cross at a speed of 20 kilometers per hour. We looked specifically and saw no one, and was already calmed down, but then we could not believe our eyes. "Yes, it is him. Here he is, yes," said Oliver with horror, and in the light of headlights we saw him. This I do not know who. We recognized him by his clothes. In the light of headlights his eyes cast green glowing color. Passing by him, he saw us with a chilling look. We stared into his eyes like mesmerized, but still we didn't stop and hit anything. And in the light of the car's brake lights, we saw him stop and turn in our direction. I gave the gas and didn't notice that we were already going 140. After dropping to 90, we started to see silhouettes at the side of the road again, and again someone was hovering above us. You can't imagine how creepy it was. The only thing that made us happy was that we had only a little bit more to go. So we drove into the long-awaited village and drove up to the hotel where Oliver lived, and where a room was waiting for us to spend the night, as the time was already 2 a.m. and nobody was going back. There we were met by Oliver's colleagues. We naturally told them everything. Believing us, they replied. They say, "Here and not such things happen." Anyway, we settled down. But even when we went to bed, the devilishness did not stop. We saw a hovering shadow in the window of the hotel until 3 to 4 in the morning. And when it appeared, there was a screeching sound, as if an iron claw on the glass, and some horrible, scary moaning. We heard it in two with my brother, because Dustin immediately passed out, and Oliver slept in another room. When it was over, I don't remember how, but I guess my eyes closed, and I fell asleep. In the morning, we were woken up by Oliver, who was going to work, and we drove home without any accidents on the federal highway. From now on, I will never take the side roads again, and I sincerely advise you not to take them. Such a fun trip.